gon' see a lot of people doing dumb shit and they said that this gon' happen on the regular. Real people, real crime, true stories. They get fatal, promise ain't nothing that's scarier. Talk about the stories, but you know we different, man. You know we had to add a little twist. Comedy and crime, speaking of man, we different design. You never seen a show like this. Comedy and crime, Rodney Perry live. 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 Comedy and crime, Rodney Perry live.
Shouts out to C Snapper for the theme song. One of my boys came on the when I put it on my Instagram page. He was like, "Yo, this is crazy. Podcast got theme songs again." I was like, "What is this old school?"
It's supposed to have a theme song, man.
Is it old school to have a theme song? No, Moose, you got to tell me because you know I'm old.
I'm old, man. I'm old. Like you can tell by the way I was dancing, I'm old. I don't even know what my body could do. I don't want to push myself too hard. But yeah,
hey, man, I'm gonna move my knee out. Hold on, one more time. Let's go. One time.
You gon' see a lot of people doing dumb shit and they said that this gon' happen on the regular. Real people, real crime, true stories. They get fatal, promise ain't nothing that's scarier.
It's really dope while you play it.
It is.
I like it, man. I like it. We need it.
Great job. Wow, the name of the podcast, Comedy and Crime. I got my guy on here, Mr. Musa. Musa, how are you today?
I'm great, man. Great. Another day above ground, solving crimes, learning about crime. You know, I feel like I'm an honorary.
You ain't solving shit.
Hey, if they want to read, if you ain't never heard about it, you can count on us to get you through it. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, you know what? That's great way to put it. Miss Melanie, you looking quite radiant under the lights over there. Like you got a whole little lighting system now.
Well, it doesn't help that I'm light skinned too, and I got lights on me, so it's just a whole lot of brightness going on over here. But I'm great today, Rodney.
Now, before we go any further, Melanie got a little boyfriend, huh? Musa, have you seen this?
That's why she glowing. That's why she glowing.
Have you seen this, Musa? Melanie got a little boo thing in Chicago.
I didn't know I didn't know she was glowing right there. That's where the light coming from. She ain't even got another ring light.
So do we like the guy? Do I need to come up there? Do Uncle Rodney need to meet him?
He's coming Friday, so you'll meet him.
Okay, I'm anxious to meet him. He's not a comedian.
No.
Yeah,
he's a fan.
I love that for you. Yeah. I mean, the hardest thing in this comedy game is to find somebody that care about you and want to go through this life with you. So I'm so happy for you. And shouts out to Melanie and a new little boyfriend. Melanie getting a beach broke off that thing. Go ahead.
That's hilarious.
Well, it's definitely helping with the grieving. Let's just say that.
That's so dope, man.
Boy, ain't nothing like the grief sex.
No, anyway. Man. I'm just like, ooh, I didn't want to lose my mother to find love, but here we are.
Your mom's blessing you, man. She done gave the internet and a man. Your mom blessing you. Where she at?
Like,
she holding you down.
Why can I get this while you was here? Dang, mama.
Yeah. So she know.
Hey, speaking of a blessing, Mr. Musa, y'all just had a birthday at your house, right? Your son just had a birthday, right?
My son on the 5th. My wife was yesterday. My wife be having better birthdays than me, man. I swear. Her birthday was amazing. I took her out.
What did you do? Did you do something fly?
Oh no, my wife, she wanted to go. She wanted hibachi for dinner. She wanted Mexican for lunch. So I hand deliver her stuff. My wife has always been somebody that she's the epitome of the thought that counts. And that's been her thing. And it didn't
start right there, Mr. Musa. Start right there. Because what I've learned about you on our time together is that Musa's cheap as hell. So,
yes.
So Musa, you did hibachi and Mexican the same day?
Bro, first of all, the Mexican didn't have a special. He charged me. They didn't have I come at the place open 11:30. I'm there 11:30. We're like, yeah. My wife went to the Churi Pollo. That's her joint. It's like $25. I'm like, but it's 11:30, sir. Oh, we don't have we don't have the chicken pollo on special. Well, give me the special chicken and just pollo it. Like you ain't gotta.
Chicken is pollo, ain't it?
Pollo is chicken.
Yeah. But he got ACP. He got all the other chicken dishes for $11, but the chicken pollo is $25. And I'm like, all right, sir. Like, all right. But for my wife, that's one person, anything in the world. You know what I mean? But me, I'm like, I got to make up the difference.
So your wife was yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And your son had a birthday. So,
5th.
man, you know that's beautiful. So my daughter is on the 16th, so we'll be in Chicago. As comedians, sometimes you have to be away for a birthday. How do y'all deal with that?
I hate it, man. My oldest, he's getting to that age where as long as you good about what he asked for, he's fine. And I don't think he's gonna really want the time right now. You know what I mean? He loves being with me 24/7, but if I'm not with him, he kind of understands as long as I can help him get whatever he's trying to get at that time. But it can't be for so long.
He might not say shit now, but nigga, 20 years from now, like, nigga, you missed my birthday?
Yeah.
I hate you.
Well, my birthday was November 2nd. My birthday is November 2nd.
Oh, heck yeah.
So, which was on a Saturday, and normally I would have done a show. Like I love doing shows on my birthday.
Me too.
Oh, I love it. But like if now, because I haven't had a significant other in a while, Rodney, so I haven't had to think about anybody. But now that I have a boyfriend, if his birthday would fall on a weekend, we would just have to celebrate, the Friday or Thursday before, because normally we're Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So if it's you just gotta plan and be thoughtful. But yeah.
I think it's a good thing that you met him when you were already a comedian. I think it's hard transition into a comedian when you was working at Wendy's. Y'all ain't gonna make it. Y'all ain't gonna make it.
Wait a minute.
You're not gonna make it. Like you gotta.
I ain't gonna say you're not gonna make it, but it does make it hard. Like I was already a comedian when I met my wife, so we didn't have to transition into a comedian. So I don't think you're wrong at all, Musa. But I ain't gonna say you're not gonna make it, but it does make it harder.
I don't know who that made it. Like he was stacking boxes, then his comedy career took off, and then he a comedy and they still together. Like I met my wife as a comedian. I met my wife at a comedy show. But I can't. I don't think women realize that. Well, I'll say this. Everybody wants you to be successful because they don't really think that success is gonna happen. I want you to be big as Kevin Hart. And then when you become Kevin Hart, she was like, I didn't think this was going to be that.
Right.
And that was different.
You have to think you're asking a person a lot, too. You're asking a person to go on this and to watch you be a celebrity. It's a lot, and my family, they've been pretty good at it over the years. I've seen, like, it was a moment with my daughter's Sweet 16 years ago. And they were kind of, you could tell the house where they murmuring, it's like something going on, but you don't know what it is. And so the murder is happening. And I'm like, what's happening? My wife was like, well, Michelle don't know she wants you to come to her birthday party. I'm like, what? I'm still paying for it, right?
Right.
I'm sure gonna be there.
Right.
But what I had to learn as a father is not to overshadow their moments. Like your kids still need to have their moment. Like, and their moment can happen while you're there without you being a celebrity.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Name of the podcast, Comedy and Crime. Today's episode about George Kirby. Was anybody familiar with George Kirby? So my mother, right, when she was alive, she would challenge me all the time. She'd say, you think you know comedy? What you know about George Kirby? And I was like, who the hell is George Kirby? And so I began to look up this guy, man. And George Kirby had a very interesting life. He was a big-time comedian. I want to say 70s, late 80s.
He had some huge breaks in his life. Some huge breaks, man.
I mean, he was that guy. Let's check out this image. George Kirby is twice as funny in 30 minutes as most comedians are in 60. He was an impressionist. He did his thing. Man. He's out there in the streets. I mean, and if I ever got to play a real life person, it might be this guy.
Oh man, you would kill that. He kind of reminded me of Paul Robeson. He was an actor, a singer, a comedian, an impressionist, a musician. Only thing Paul Robeson had on him was that he was also a lawyer.
Was he? I don't know if I knew that.
Yeah, Paul Robeson was a lawyer as well. Yeah, he went to law school. I don't know if he ever practiced, but he definitely was, involved in civil rights. But yeah, I watched the video that you commentated for Comedy Hype, and so I just learned so much about this guy. Like, he was fascinating.
He's absolutely a fascinating guy. He's a stand-up comedian, and he fits right into our wheelhouse, comedy and crime. So let's check out a little snippet of the piece I did for Comedy Hype.
We're impressed by comedians that can do impressions and comedians that can do more than just make us laugh. To possess more than one talent is nearly unbelievable. George Kirby was one of those artists that few know about, but his talent was limitless. Kirby's abilities earned him mass appeal, TV and movie appearances, along with an endless stream of club gigs. However, because the culture of comedy shifted in the mid-'70s, it left Kirby without a place to fit in. With TV appearances drying up and the gaps between gigs getting larger, it led to Kirby's own downfall, where he turned to a life of crime in order to support himself. Hey, it's me, Rodney Perry, and this is a story you should know. George Kirby was born June 8, 1923 in Chicago. His mother was a singer and his father was a musician, so entertaining was in his blood from the beginning. Kirby grew up on the south side of Chicago. Interestingly enough, Louis Armstrong was his neighbor. After having moved to Chicago from New Orleans, Louis Armstrong would go on to become one of Kirby's most famous impressions. He would even play him in an episode of a variety series, Dolly, in 1988. Kirby spent a lot of his childhood on the road with his parents in show business. As a result, he was absent from school, which caused him to drop out of Wendell Phillips High School at the end of his sophomore year. Kirby worked several odd jobs in order to support himself. These jobs included dishwashing and bartending. The latter gave him the opportunity to perform on stage for the first time. Kirby also served in the U.S. Army during World War II. After serving for 3 years, he returned to Club de Lisa and became a featured performer. Their shows contained a variety show format where singers, dancers, and comedians would perform. Kirby had the talent to perform in every segment. He was a jazz piano player, a singer, stand-up comedian, but was most known for his impressions. John Wayne and Clark Gable, Louis Armstrong, and Nat King Cole were some of his favorites. One thing that made Kirby stand out from the rest was his ability to pull off impressions of famous white stars as well.
This is Scrum McCarthy. What a fight tonight. The Brown Bomber emerged victorious once again. We're trying to get the microphone on Joe. Joe, tell me, what do you think was the punch that did it?
Oh. Hey, y'all, thank you to Comedy Hype for that. Shout out to Comedy Hype, they're a friend of the show as well. And let's unpack this George Kirby, man. The guy was a fabulous comedian. He traveled around the country. And back then, I don't know if y'all remember comedy pre-OJ. And the reason I use OJ as a barometer, because remember, OJ used to run through the airport. And you used to be able to do that. Like, wasn't no security. You could really jump over the fucking thing and be at your gate. Yeah. And so, being that celebrities would travel freely, George Kirby became a drug trafficker. And he began to take drugs across the country. Melanie, what do you know about George Kirby?
Well, I learned a lot today. Born in Chicago, went to Phillips. One of my uncles went to that school in Bronzeville, Chicago, historic neighborhood. I mean, neighbors with Louis Armstrong. Like, I didn't even know Louis Armstrong left New Orleans and moved to Chicago. Like, I learned. How about that? Yeah. I learned so much today. So, wow, what a foundation. Because I think about some of my favorite impressionists. If you think about like Affion Crockett or Jay Farrow or Godfrey or Ari Spears, or even to some extent Jamie Foxx. Like, this guy literally laid the groundwork for comedy and impressionists. And so I know you say pre-OJ, but like his comedy was pre-Richard Pryor. So this was like variety show comedy, clean, like family oriented. So
I think him and Richard Pryor kind of happening at the same time.
Yeah. But I think from what I understand, like, once Richard Pryor came on the scene, it kind of changed like like comedy,
observational comedy.
Yeah, him, George Carlin, like those kind of comedians. So, and then like comedy, like, so I mean, obviously Bill Cosby was out around this time too. So I guess there was a class.
You make a great point, Melanie.
Yeah,
maybe that affected what happened to him ultimately, because you got a vacuum like Richard Pryor that comes to the game and changes everything. Now a guy that's an impressionist, a Vegas guy.
Yep.
All of a sudden can't make a living.
Yeah, because he reminded me of like a Sammy Davis or like a real performer. He had his own variety show, that had like 12 episodes. So he had his own named show. So I mean, so he was like a big deal in like the 60s and 70s, way before I was even a thought in my mother's eye. But because I was born in 1981. But yeah, so to go from that, so basically, like, you know, I don't want to say a clean comic, but you know, like a comic that was doing the, like you said, the Vegas style comedy, the variety show, the singing, the stand up, the impressions. I mean, and he did some really amazing impressions. Amazing. He was doing John Wayne and Louis Armstrong. Like, no, who's doing John Wayne? You know what I mean? Like, it's
John Wayne was big back in the day.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying, but like for a black man to do a white impression, like it seems to me that's what helped him cross over and become.
You know what? John Wayne probably turned on his grave not knowing this shit.
Right, exactly. Well, you know, he was racist. Who's doing my impression? I don't even know what John Wayne sounds like.
Wait a minute. How are you? Yeah, Hey, Musa, what's your thoughts on George Kirby, man? We comedians, so it's always special to see these type of stories.
Yeah.
Where a guy turns to a life of crime. What's your thoughts?
Hats off to him, first of all, because anytime we hear those stories about comedians who integrated rooms that we can now enter freely, you know, I'm always a huge Dick Gregory fan because how he integrated some of the comedy clubs. He was in being the first black performer in an all-white comedy club. It has to be nerve-wracking to another level. Like I've done rooms that are white rooms, and I've been the only black person on the bill, but they knew I was coming. You know what I mean? I'm not the first black person they saw before. So just hats off to the level of just gumption, or lack of a better word, to even push through and succeed at that. Also, you know, back then the comedy shows were a lot longer, man. Like you just couldn't be a one-trick pony back in those days. You know, like she had said, you know, it's more like a Rat Pack, Sammy Davis Jr. type of thing. You know, they sing, they dance, they do impressions, they tell jokes. It was really, really, really talented. It almost makes you feel like we've took the step back as far as the level of talent you have to be to succeed compared to then and now. But I also wanted to mention real quick and talk to you guys about, they saying his career kind of shifted when Richard Pryor came on the scene, because Richard was more of an observational comic talking about like political things, and him and George Carlin. But if you look back, Dick Gregory was doing that. And then even before him, Moms Mabley was somebody whose comedy her comedy reflected what was going on at that time. Even though if you were black, you kind of see through a lot of the things that they would laugh at. She was kind of bringing light to the situations of what we went through as black people. So I'm like, it always existed. So I guess when Richard Pryor came, did it go mainstream? And that's why he was hard for him to be able to succeed, because I look through history and I see politically and socially aware comics from day one.
I mean, I guess we would have to be there to really say, but I mean, Richard Pryor was definitely a vacuum when Richard Pryor starts to happen. It changed everything, and so Richard Pryor is largely the father of my generation of comedy, which is the Comic View Def Jam generation. But he's our grandfather. Eddie Murphy is our father. Eddie Murphy is our father. George Kirby is like our uncle.
Yeah.
You know, Red Fox is their father.
Yep.
You know, but let's not get sidetracked. George was also married to a white woman.
Oh boy.
I didn't see that. They didn't say that in the documentary.
She's a blonde lady, Sarah Kirby, 20-year-old white woman of George Kirby.
He made it.
Right, he made it. Because like, yeah, back in those, like, I mean, just imagine being married to a white woman back in the 50s and 60s as a black man. We just got civil rights back then, you know. And there's probably some places where it was like, because Virginia v. Loving was in the 60s. So like interracial marriage was illegal up until like the mid 60s.
Wow.
Yep.
So his crime, and look at the crime itself. George Kirby was arrested on a dope charge. Dope charge. They called it dope.
Dope. That's
Hilarious.
old.
George Kirby arrested on a dope charge by Los Angeles PD when they raided a mixed party and found $500 in heroin. That's a relatively small amount of heroin, am I right?
I don't know if that's the original charge, because I think the biggest charge, he was sentenced to like 20 years back in 1977 for the trafficking, and that was the one that was $26,000 worth of heroin. But wasn't he also an addict? Like, so he had got addicted to heroin.
So.
Yeah,
he definitely got addicted to heroin, and man, his life, man. He tried to make a comeback toward the end of his life, but I mean, by the end, he done so much damage to his body and stuff.
Yeah, Parkinson's. He died of Parkinson's, right?
Yes.
But the crime itself, I think he was charged with drug trafficking, and I think to your point, you were talking about airports, and you said pre-OJ, but really pre-September 11th, right? So
for sure.
Prior to 2001, yeah, you could. I mean, I remember going to Midway and seeing my family off to the gate. You used to be able to walk to the gate with your family members and not even go to security. But now you have to have a ticket to go through security. But he used his celebrity. He's like, hey, well, they not really check, because they didn't have TSA didn't exist back then, so they weren't really. I mean, they may have had drug sniffing dogs doing random screens back then, but I mean, there was really not a lot of not a lot of.
So let's look at it. He goes to a party with his white wife. It's a mixed party. There's heroin at the party. They're partaking. They're having a good time, and the party gets raided. That was kind of the beginning of the end for him.
Okay, but then he still
married a white woman.
Yeah, he's married to a white woman.
I thought you said what was the beginning of the end for him?
No, the beginning of the end. That party, that particular party where he got caught up in that party, got caught up in that raid.
Oh. I thought you said something else.
What was the situation where he was caught selling drugs to like a FBI undercover?
All right, Kirby started chipping. His first drug conviction was in 1957 in Florida. Performed for 2 weeks in Miami Beach. He received a probation so that he could complete his run. He was still on probation when he got his swept up in a drug raid in 1958.
Okay, so that was that one.
Heroin possession and violating the terms of his probation. He was sentenced to 2 years in the United States Public Service Hospital in Lexington, Kentucky. Okay. Kirby vanished from the comedy scene for 24 months. He was deemed rehabilitatable. Rehabilitated in 1960. So he had bouts with heroin all through his life, looks like.
Yeah, sounds like it.
He was a great guy. His fellow impressionist Will Jordan screwed up his life with drugs. Everybody was on his side. He got out, got his career back, and then he not only goes back to drugs, he became a pusher. So he has a bout with heroin. He deals with drugs, right? And then he gets rehabilitated and goes back to the drugs and starts selling the drugs. So that's when he got caught up.
That was the federal case in 1977. So that was the case I was trying to look up, but it's too old to be on Pacer. But essentially he got sentenced to I want to say 20 years for drug trafficking. For the high amount of heroin that he was caught with. And now, mind you, this was prior to the Sentencing Reform Act of 1987 or 88, because that's when Reagan got in and gave the mandatory minimums.
The war on drugs.
Yeah, so that was the war on drugs. So, but he got sentenced prior to that, because I think in that 1977 case, he only served like 3.5 years in prison. And so by the time he got arrested again in Hollywood, it was like 1982. He was like in a halfway house by the time that arrest had occurred. But I mean, I guess the number one cardinal rule: don't get high off your own supply. If you're a user, you can't be a dealer. You got to pick a struggle. you got to pick a struggle.
Do you feel like his race played a effect in this whole thing? Because I'm like, I
mean, he definitely existed at the height of racism in America. I mean, 50s, 60s, 70s. So I'm sure race played into what happened to him, but he's not the only one to get stuck with heroin, man. Heroin was plaguing our community. You know, that's also along the same time that George Lucas is becoming George Lucas, you know, in New York. But he's in Miami, he's in LA.
You mean Frank Lucas? George Lucas is the guy who's been in Star Wars.
That's the wrong Lucas.
But at the same time, he right though, because I was like, Star Wars probably did come out around this time, so I was like,
right.
Probably right.
And you probably had to be high to write that.
Yeah, there was the Star Wars,
right?
But what I'm saying is though, you know, you a drug dealer of the creme de la creme. I'm pretty sure, like, when they want to know where to get the heroin from, the black dude who a comic sell heroin. That's what I'm saying. I feel like he's almost putting a target on it, because you was at these Beverly Hills parties, you were on TV. He's on TV. So he's around successful people selling heroin as a black person. I'm like, bro,
everybody wanted the drugs though. Everybody, you know, people wanted heroin. You know, I mean,
yeah.
You didn't have to be no great salesman to sell heroin.
But I feel like he's just almost more recognizable.
Oh, for
you know,
sure.
being as a black man on that level and performing on TV, I would try my best to keep a low profile outside of being on TV.
But by the time he got caught up, his show had been canceled, because I think his show was like in the early 70s, like 72, 73. That case was like from 1977. So like by the time he got sent up, his career had already like dwindled. So he had kind of, like, I don't want to say fallen off, but I mean, probably had fallen off. And he's like, hey, I need to make money. I know all these famous people that have money and they trust me, because again, like, if you're a celebrity, you know, I think this is before the days of NDAs, you know what I mean? So it's like, if you want to have confidentiality and you want a trusted, you know, a fellow celebrity entertainer that you know will keep your confidence, because I mean, let's be honest, back in the 70s, everybody was on drugs. Like, for sure. You know what I'm saying? Heroin, cocaine, marijuana, Quaaludes, LSD, I mean, you name it, we was on it. Like, the 70s was a wild time.
For sure. Comedian George Kirby convicted several times on narcotics charges. He was arrested at Hollywood Boulevard while allegedly picking up a package for an escaped federal prisoner, authorities said on Tuesday. Deputy Marshal Weinstein said he arrested Kirby Monday afternoon, several blocks from a halfway house where he was serving out of 1977 drug conviction. Yeah. So even while he's in a halfway house, he was still a slave to the drugs, man. Wow.
And I know where that is because it was on Vine and Hollywood Boulevard. I live off of Vine and Santa Monica Boulevard, so that's literally near my house. So yeah, I know exactly where that. I mean, it's something different now, but yeah. So like, he even back then, and even in that article you just read, he was in a halfway house, but he still had a room at a motel in Hollywood. So they're like, he wasn't even supposed to have that room in Hollywood. But I'm like, hey, he's like, well, I'm supposed to sell my drugs, like.
That boy.
I look at his sentences. He was sentenced for 2 20-year terms,
right?
Concurrently with each other and with the federal sentences. So concurrently mean they happen on top of each other, right?
Yeah. So like, because I saw that, but even with the 20-year concurrent sentence, I think he only did because like I was on Pacer trying to find the case, but it's so old that they don't have it. But literally, they concurrently means they run them together. Consecutive means they run them back to back. So they were run concurrently, but it seems to me like he only did. I don't know what, like that article, there's no follow-up articles. I don't know if they resentenced him. I don't think he went back because he said after that he was doing community service and telling people not to do drugs. So he did 3.5 years was the original sentence. So I don't think he did more than that. So I don't know if I guess they didn't revoke his probation. And again, this is prior to the Sentencing Reform Act, because after that they had mandatory minimums. So he would have did way more time if he had got caught up in the 80s, like the late 80s, as opposed to the early 80s. So because like for him to only do 3.5 years for 2 20-year sentences, that's a slap on the wrist, really, for federal time.
Right. So the federal agents had testified that his career as a show business person was a great cover for his dealing drugs because he was able to pass through the airports relatively freely, and people at checkpoints would just let him go. And I mean, he was definitely a slave to the drugs. And to read this man's story is like really wild to me, man. What's your thoughts, Musa, as we unpack this George Kirby young man?
Well, I got a theory for you guys because I was recently listening to a therapist talk, and they were interviewing an impressionist that was on at ASNL for some time, and this person said the therapist basically felt like people who are constantly doing impressions, they do it to escape their reality. Like you always trying to get into the brain or the mind of not being yourself. So that on top of the fact that he was this battle with drug addiction, do y'all feel like he had some type of psychological issues going on that he never addressed?
Rodney, you on mute
this time. Ha ha.
I hit the button too. I'm stupid. So no, but you made a great point, man, because like he had to be dealing with some mental issues. I mean, he went through and he got on and off drugs probably 7, 8, 9 different times in his life. So he was plagued by drugs. He was plagued by mental illness. Does it have something to do with him doing impressions? Maybe.
I think so. Most people who you hear that do impressions always say they started at a very young age. You never hear somebody say they started doing impressions at 40 or 35, 20. I've been doing impressions my whole life. When I was a little kid, I pretended I was XYZ. And I'm like, that means something. Not saying that they're crazy or anything, but I feel like there's something there that they're trying to escape from as a child. And it just ended up being a talent. That's just how I feel. I mean,
that's more than fair. And I never fashioned myself as an impression. I can do impressions, but
because your dad loved you, because your mom loved you. That's why you can't do it.
That's why
because your family loves you. See, if I can't do impressions either, Rodney, because I come from a good home. I tell you all the time. I had love in my house.
You out of control. You out of control, dog. Melanie, what's your thoughts, George Kirby, man?
So, I mean, as a comedian, as a singer, as an actress, as a lawyer, as somebody whose both parents deal with drug issues back in the 80s. I even do a bit. I was like, I found out some family secrets in Chicago. I knew my mom was a felon because she did 10 years in federal prison, but I know what happened to my dad. Couldn't find out he was a felon too. And I said, well, they got together and said, what rhymes with felony? Melanie. So, as far as drug abuse and Rodney and Artsy, you can attest to this as comedians. I mean, substance abuse is rampant in the comic community, whether it be alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, heroin, Molly, fentanyl, whatever they call it. And one of our good friends, Roy Wood Jr., he said, in order to be a comedian, you have to have some level of dysfunction, right? Like there's no absence of dysfunction if you're a comedian. And obviously how you deal with it, but I mean, you probably, Rodney, in your 30+ year career as a comedian, you've probably seen every end of the spectrum, from the alcoholics to the drug addicts to the weed heads, and how it affected their careers and their trajectories. Yeah. And you know what I'm saying? So it's like anybody that's addicted to any kind of illegal substance is typically trying to mask or cover some trauma that typically happened in childhood. But I think we're all attracted to comedy because we literally have to turn the dark parts of our life into laughs and bare our souls and share with the audience those deep things that make us us, but also make it funny. And then, but that's what makes us relatable. And that's what makes us different from the average person, because we can turn tragedy into triumph and make it into a joke. And that's the special gift. But that takes a little bit of dysfunction. I definitely got it.
And you know what? I mean, you both made some great points. And for me, I think my parents haven't been through that part of their life, create a vacuum where I never wanted drugs. Mm-hmm. I never wanted to be dependent on anything. And so their dysfunction was my function, for lack of a better word. And so, when stuff happens to your parents, you act and react one or two ways. You either lean toward it or lean away from it. And for me, I leaned away from it after seeing what drugs did to our home. Mm-hmm.
That's a blessing, man. And it's crazy because people could be under the same roof and you could have a brother or sister who lean towards it. It's always interesting to see siblings and how they react to the same trauma, basically, right? it's weird. Cause me and my brother, I love my brother to death, but me and my brother night and day, man. But we are under the same roof.
I mean, we all, even though we live under the same roof, we live different lives. Like my sister swear I had the easiest life in the world. She's like, you got to go everywhere, you got to do everything. I was like, yeah. But it was a couple of things like my brother could not do because I hurt my knee playing football. So neither one of them could play football. My mother outlawed football after that. George Kirby, man, great impressive, great comedian. Arrested several times for heroin, and wow, I mean, what an interesting story, man. And again, would this not be a cool guy to play?
Oh man, this story is screaming for a biopic. Like this guy's, and like you said, Rodney, you'd be the perfect guy to play this. But yeah, his life, his exploits, his upbringing, the celebrities that he fraternized with, that he performed with. I mean, his legacy is, amazing. It didn't say he had any children.
His children, no. Rodney, how would you prepare for this role, man? Other than sleeping with a white woman, like how would you prepare?
Then we call that method acting.
Yeah. Relax, baby, relax. It's for the role.
It's for the role.
Move your hand. No.
Move your hand.
No, but more than anything, man, that's a great question, Musa. I mean, as an actor, I would learn as much about him as I could, and then I try to be honest, man. Try to be honest and truthful, because you can't judge a guy like this. Because we look at it now from this perspective. It's like, how do you do that? How do you do that? But when a guy is on heroin, and I've seen heroin, how it acts and reacts with a human body, it ain't no easy walk away from. And so, and to watch your career fall apart in front of you, and you not being able to make a living, you don't know how to do nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
I get it, and shit, my money tight right now. But guess what? I'm about to motherfucker go sell no heroin.
Well, you like your freedom too much, Rodney. You like your freedom.
I like my freedom.
You like your freedom way too much. No, but I have another joke about this because unfortunately my mom was addicted to heroin in the 80s, and my dad was addicted to cocaine. I was like, well, that's why they didn't work up. My mom wanted to lay down. My dad wanted to turn up.
What's wrong with you, man?
I'm a comedian. That's what's wrong with me. But if you think about the opioid crisis, he died before that. He died in like 1995, 1996. But like the opioid crisis brought back heroin because heroin is cheaper than oxycodone, hydrocodone, Percocet, any of the, Tylenol 3, any of the opioid derivatives. Like literally opioids brought heroin back. And so if you just look at, because they call it a crisis because it affects the Caucasian persuasion, the unmelanated folks of the United States. So it's a crisis because it affects them, but it was a war on drugs when it affected us, when it was crack in the 80s. But it's a crisis when it affects the unmelanated, soon-to-be minority of this country.
No, they're not. No, he about to even them numbers.
Oh no, they're about to be minorities. We're gonna be the majority.
But those dudes on the boat, he putting us on the boat, man.
Where are we gonna go back to? We can't go back to Africa. We can't. Where they gonna send us? They can't send me back to Africa. Okay, I'm more than half white, so they go.
You can come out looking like me and Rodney.
You gotta
see her for one weekend.
They gotta send me to Europe.
What effect does heroin have on the body? I don't know.
It's a sedative, so it basically anesthetizes you. And makes you kind of, it's a downer. Like cocaine is an upper, so it brings you up. Like cocaine's like the party drug. Like I never got offered cocaine, so I moved to LA. They're like, you party, and they offered me a white bag. I was like, no thanks. Gave it right back. I'm like, I'm good. I'll just have a drink. But
I'm at a party years ago, right? And they started passing around the cocaine, big tray of cocaine. And my homegirl comedian, she started playing sleep. I'm like, man, we about to go, dog. He's like, all right.
Yeah.
I want to that's very interesting. Being a comic, which you would think that your drug of choice would be heroin. Being that he's a comic who wears so many hats, he's because just judging from what I saw, his style was more of a show tune, high energy type of thing. So do you think the heroin was something when I get off stage, this is how I relax? Because
man,
it's just weird.
You know what? I don't think people choose drugs that way. I think your drug of choice is like your fashion. It's like what's hot at the moment. You know.
See,
but what you don't know is how addicting it is.
Right.
Okay. Because I remember, Rich Homie Quan, who recently passed away from the overdose.
Yep.
He had said when my career took off and I was doing shows, I was doing 3 or 4 shows a night, I used to fall asleep between shows. And he said one of the people that was in charge of him said, I got something that'll help you stay up. And that's how he got hooked on drugs. So I'm like, that's why I said what I said, because it's just so interesting that it would be that. Like you crush it. Like, right, I don't know. I don't know who was popping as far as comedians were at that time, but it might be safe to say he was top 5 as far as comics go when in his heyday, right? Would you say that? So you top 5, bro. You paying for the Chicago Bulls, 90s Bulls.
He definitely was a big deal.
Oh, he was a huge deal. He was a huge deal. But I also know, based on just my observation of people that are opioid addicts, like you need more and more for it to have the same effect. So the more you take, the less, you get the high, but you don't get, you know what I mean? Because like you get kind of desensitized, if that makes sense. So you need, you're right. Making the money he made, he can afford to keep upping it. Yeah, because you need more and more just to get the same. So it's like they call it chasing a dragon, like you chasing that high, but it's like you can never get it because like you need more and more to
And while you playing, heroin is making a comeback.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh no, it's back. It's back. It's
back. Young people on heroin right now. Heroin. Yeah.
But the scary thing is it's cut with fentanyl. Like that's the scary part because like
fentanyl is killing motherfuckers the first hit.
Yeah. So I'm just I'm gonna stick to my weed because I'm just like it's legal in California. Like I'm gonna stick to
I don't want no weed.
Well, no, I get it from the dispensary, so like it's regulated.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's regulated. It's they have to test it.
You smoke weed?
My weed dealer named Spence. Go
ahead. I take gummies,
So Rodney, though, can we talk back to you as far as you
get them.
That you could play this role? Like just having this conversation, it seems like this person has to go to a dark space a few times in this movie, because now that we discussing his life, I'm feeling like there was 2 types of people. I feel like there was the person on TV that you knew, and it was this person who battled his drug addiction. I really feel like he was in a dark space. Are you comfortable playing an actor who has to be in a dark mental state? Like, because we've seen many actors in Hollywood say how affected they were. Even the Heath Ledger, the Joker, perfect example for people who played one character and low key was never the same after that. Are you cool with just being that?
Unlocking these chambers in your mind and your body and your spirit it can be dangerous, but that's our lot in life. So you would at least try to do it, and try to be honest with the character if you can, and not judge him, and just be the guy. He's got a great life, a great story. And how many real life black men can you play that's got this rich of a story,
Besides him and Dick Gregory are 2 stories that I feel like really need to be told.
Absolutely.
I think he's a great story. Yeah.
I think who's the guy who played Blade, the new Blade? I think he would be a good Dick Gregory.
Who played Black Blade?
He got a Jamaican name. He got an African name.
It's an African name. Oof, it's so long. Yeah. But he would be great.
Y'all both stupid. It's so long. He just gave up on.
It's like Mutulu. I'll get about.
Hey, Madeline. Madeline, I know you're off mic, but Madeline, do you know what George Kirby's sign was? Let's look at this from an astrological perspective.
Mahershala Ali. I was killing me. That's his name.
Yeah.
I like Mahershala Ali.
Yeah.
He was a pipe.
He was it seems like he was a Gemini. So 2 faces, 2 sides. Because he was born in June 1923. Yeah.
We hit it right in the head.
Just said that.
Hit it right in the head.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting, man. Hey, great show today. The name of the man is George Kirby. If you don't know about him, look him up. Great chat, guys. My name is Rodney Perry. That is Melanie. That young man is Artsy Musa. And this is Comedy and Crime, man. Great podcast, bro. Hey, I really enjoyed talking to y'all. Get up out.
George Kirby.
George Kirby. Get his drug on.
I feel like you should do
Talk about the story, but you know we different, man. You know we had to add a little twist. Comedy and crime, speaking of man, we different design. You never seen a show like this. Comedy and crime, Rodney Perry live. Comedy and crime, Rodney Perry live. Comedy and crime, Rodney Perry live. Comedy and crime,